How you doing and welcome to my channel. Now the reason we're looking at the Dawn of Justice Hot Toys Ben Affleck Batman is because I've received two items in the post today from 16 Kit. I've received the Jaxon shoe Drape cape. We'll have a look at that, and already straight off the bat I'm not sure if that's better than the Hot Toys one. And then I've received what's inside this quite nice box with the Wayne Enterprises logo on it. We have this head sculpt from Jackson's shoe that looks a little bit more like Ben Affleck than the Hot Toys one, and you can see there that it doesn't have any eyes in it because I have to take the eyes out of the head sculpt from Hot Toys. So what we'll do first of all is we'll have a look at the cape. You can see we have a Drape cape that comes with the Hot Toys one, and there's quite a lot of detail in it. In the bottom of it there's quite a lot of dirt and tears and jagged at the bottom like it was in the movie. It drapes quite well, to be honest. Let's get this off and let's do a little comparison with the two of them. Let's have a look at the size difference for starters. So here we have the Hot Toys one laid out on, laid out flat, and you can see the browns in it and the dirt in it are quite prominent and look really well, and the tears in it are all, very staggered and look very rough indeed. And then we have the Jaxon shoe one. First of all, it is tiny in comparison to the Hot Toys one, which is quite a contrast. They're usually bigger than the Hot Toys one, so yeah, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I'm not sure. And also the arching in it, it's not quite in frame there, but the arching at the bottom of it, I'm not sure if that's accurate or not. I'd have to look back at the movie, but the arching on it doesn't look to me like it's accurate, but I might be wrong. And the dirt on it is more of a white or a dusty colour on it, so far off the bat I'm not sure whether the Jaxon shoe one is a huge improvement. So let's get it on the figure and see how it looks on it. So here we have kind of the top half of it with the Jaxon shoe Drape cape on, and I know I do have the Hot Toys head sculpt on, or cowl on, just for the moment. We'll get onto the Jaxon shoe one later, but straight off the bat the way it drapes over the shoulders is very accurate and much better than the Hot Toys one. There isn't a whole lot of material over his shoulders in the movie. Now it's not so different to the Hot Toys one. It contours to the shoulder better, but there is a bit of a gap there. The Hot Toys one's a bit thicker, so it fills that gap, but there's a small little gap in the chest there because this cape is a lot thinner than the Hot Toys one. Not ideal, but how that contours to the body is much better than the Hot Toys one. It really looks well draped over the shoulders. It looks accurate, and the way it sits at the back is accurate, although you can see that zip just protruding through. But let's pull this back here and see if we can get a full length of it. Yeah, it looks okay. It sits quite nice, as most drape capes from Jackson's shoe do. And it just comes to the ground. Why isn't he standing up for me here? Come on, stand up there. There we go. Yeah, because of the arching in the bottom of it, it's only the center piece at the middle that really tips off the ground. Again, I'd have to look back to see if that arching is accurate. I'm not sure how accurate that is, as I said. And I would have liked to have seen more dirt and grime in it, just like the Hot Toys one. That looks absolutely superb, the dirt and grime on the bottom of the cape. So they both have their pros and cons for now. But as for how it sits really well. Even on the side profile there, it absolutely looks the part. Looks great. Quite happy with how it drapes and how it sits. And as I said from the beginning, when I done the size comparison, I'm unsure as to whether I was gonna keep the Hot Toys one or keep the Jaxon shoe one. And I'm still not 100% sure, to be honest with you, but we'll put them side by side and see how they look beside each other. And here we have the two capes beside each other, the Hot Toys on the right and the Jaxon shoe on the left, and you can see that the Jaxon shoe one sits more neatly on him, and you know, goes around his shoulders a lot more neatly. You can see there from the side profile that the Jaxon shoe one sticks to the body a lot better and drapes way more naturally and looks, you know, it looks neater. It does look better. Although the Hot Toys one is no slouch, the Jaxon shoe one just looks more the part, to be honest. So I am starting to lean more towards the Jaxon shoe one. And here we have kind of a distance shot, just showing the full length of it there and how much neater the Jaxon shoe one is. Up until this point here, I was unsure as to whether I was going to keep the Jaxon shoe one on, but I think I am. And just looking at it from the back there, I think I am going to keep that Jaxon shoe one and just maybe paint up the bottom of it, maybe get an airbrush and just dirty up the bottom of it and make it a little bit more like the Hot Toys one on the bottom. So moving on, we have the Jaxon shoe head sculpt for the Dawn of Justice Batman. You can see that it comes with three interchangeable faceplates, although this one here, if I don't drop it, we have these two here are pretty similar to each other. They're very similar to each other. There isn't a whole heap of difference in them. Maybe the stubble is the only difference. And then this one here, if I can get it out of the foam, we have, where's the opening for the plastic? Probably should have took all of this out of plastic before I started filming, but we'll deal with it. So, and then we have an open mouth one, which doesn't have a whole lot of depth to it. It doesn't have a whole lot of detail to it. We'll have a look at them a bit later on. And as I mentioned, it doesn't come with any eyes. That's very loose as well, that faceplate. It doesn't come with any eyes, but if you're fortunate enough to get the deluxe Dawn of Justice Batman, it does come with an articulated sculpt and a fixed static sculpt. So I'm going to take the eyes out of this articulated sculpt. Now, I've never taken a set of eyes out before, so this is all new to me. It's a bit daunting, but let's see if I can get zoomed in and do this without breaking anything. So we have the tweezers. Do I pinch it and pull it out? That feels like I'm gonna break something. Yeah, that feels like I'm gonna break something. Not happy about that. I'm just gonna pinch it underneath and pull it out. There we go. There's one eye out. It definitely came out. Slightly wedged in. There we go. And what I done there was I actually didn't actually pinch it. I pinched it like that first time around, but that's not really gonna work. So I just done then was just got the tweezers underneath that lip and just popped it out like so. So there we have the eyes out. That was a little bit easier than expected. A little bit scary, but a little bit easier than expected. And now for fitting them into the Jaxon shoe sculpt, this is not going to be easy because of the depth of it. This is not going to be easy at all. Let's see if I can get more light in there and see if you guys can see what I'm doing. So onto the tweezers, and I'm not going to try and insert it. It's not going to be easy. I've popped it into the, placed it into the socket, and I'm just going to push it in by hand, and there we go. It's popped in. That's very tight, but it's in. That's one eye in, and it's not in frame. I've forgotten that I've zoomed right in, so I beg your pardon. Very, very squinty. His eyes are quite closed compared to the Hot Toys one. And then for the second eye, and just same again, just seating it into its socket like so. As you can see, it's not plugged in. And let me get a little bit zoomed in there. There we go. Just seating it into its place, and then working it in with my finger and just pushing it in. A little bit tight, a little bit stiff. It's not going in as easily as the first one. There we go. We have it in, and we are out of frame again. I do apologize. I keep forgetting that I have it zoomed in so much. And let's go for the close. There we go, into frame again. The closed mouth sculpt, or faceplate should I say. And there we go. It's a little bit, it's like his chin is leaning more to the side there on that faceplate. It's a little bit odd. It definitely looks more like Affleck, and it's definitely a more accurate shape to the sculpt, or to the cowl. Let's have a look at the open mouth plate on and see what that looks like on. That looks terrible, to be honest with you. I'm not a fan of that at all. The teeth don't look great at all. Very flat, no depth to it, very two-dimensional. So not a faceplate I'd be using. And I did get some wet on them there somehow. And yeah, there's the third faceplate. This is the better faceplate out of all of them, to be honest with you. So let's have a look at it on the figure and see how it's presented. Right, so I feel like a bit of an idiot, because I'm after taking all these Hot Toys head sculpts apart and taking the sleeves out of both of the Hot Toys head sculpt, these sleeves here, and it's absolutely not necessary to do so. I made a video, I posted it last week, saying that this was a pain in the ass to do, taking out these sleeves, and somebody commented saying it wasn't necessary and pointed out to me what needed to be done. And yeah, I felt like a bit of an idiot. In my defense, I think Jaxon Shoes should have put in some instructions as to how it's done. Like I said, I've taken these sleeves out of the Hot Toys head sculpt. Took me forever to do it. They should be glued in there, and I took them out thinking that they needed to be taken out to fit the Jaxon Shoe head sculpt on, and it absolutely is not necessary. The handful of people who've seen my original video that I've now taken down would have seen me giving out about how poorly the head sculpt fit, or the hassle you had to go through to get it to fit, and it turns out that it wasn't necessary. So I'm going to continue on with where I re-recorded after I found out how it was to be fit. So as I said, I feel like an idiot because it turned out that this is quite simple to do. And I went through the ordeal of taking apart the Hot Toys head sculpts that I'm going to have to re-glue. There was no reason, not necessary, to take apart the Hot Toys head sculpts. So how you put this head sculpt on is, if I can get this light in here, let me see if I can get some light in here. And actually what I'll do is I'll zoom it in a little bit as well. I'm going to get the light in here if I can. There we go. See that little square shape in the top of the sculpt, or deep in the sculpt there, that square cutout? That is there for a reason, and I don't know how I didn't spot it, or why I didn't spot it at the time. In my defense, I think Jaxon Shoe should have put in some instructions as to how to fit this sculpt. So these two little protruding spikes that come out, this piece here, this sleeve here, is inside, usually should be inside the sculpt, the little square cut out on it there, and it all clips into place. The head sculpt obviously should be attached to that sleeve, and it all mounts and stays in place. So what you're supposed to do with the Jaxon Shoe one is, now I made the mistake of just lining this up and popping it on, and it wasn't extremely tight. It was on, but it wasn't really tight. So what I ended up doing was just giving this piece here a quarter turn and popping the head sculpt on, lining it up, or trying to line it up. It's a little bit awkward to do, and that fits so much tighter. That is way tighter than it was. Now I've left let me bring the light up a little bit. Actually, it's not helping, the lack of light. So with it straightforward like that, as it should be with the Hot Toys one, let me get the full effect here and put the Jaxon Shoe cape on, although it's a little bit awkward to get everything lined up with how, that cape just kind of, you have to hold the cape in position basically when you're putting it on. And if I put it on straight like so, if I can get it lined up without too much hassle, there we go. It does work. It is on. It's just not, it's not extremely tight. Now I've pressed it on a little bit tighter there than it just was, but it's not extremely tight. that's it pressed on, you know, pretty tight, but it does kind of just come off. It just kind of, you know, comes off very easily. So I gave this piece a quarter turn. Now you might, and other people might not have to do this with their ones. You know, their one might be molded differently. Just my one, if you turn that quarter turn and pop it on, I can actually feel and hear a click. I can feel it snapping into place if I do that. Now the cape needs a bit of futzing, but I can feel and hear a click, and that is on way tighter now with the half turn or the quarter turn on the adapter, and that's pretty much how you install it. Now I have read online that a couple of people have had the same issues as mine. Now they didn't go as far as I did by taking apart the Hot Toys one, but they were complaining that the head sculpt didn't fit on the Jaxon shoe sculpt didn't fit. So I hope this helps out a few people that were in the same dilemma as I was in with the head sculpt and how it fit. And let me just bring that in a little bit. And that is a far superior head sculpt to the Jaxon shoe one, or to the Hot Toys one, should I say. I will say I'm not overly impressed with the paint applications. I'm not sure if I mentioned that. The face plates, they're not the best. They're not fantastic. The paint applications. There's the other closed mouth one. It's a slightly different expression on the lips, and the stubble is a little bit different, but it's not a huge difference, and it just seems like this one doesn't fit entirely right. It just seems a bit odd to me. It's almost identical to the other one, but it just doesn't fit ideal. It just doesn't look like it fits right. So let me grab the open mouth one, and we'll have a look at that one. Where have I put it? There it is there. So let me get it into position, and there we go. Just trying to get all this lined up is a little bit of a nuisance. And there we go, and there's the open mouth one. If I can get it lined up and clipped in. Getting it lined up is a little bit awkward, but there we are for the open mouth one. I'm not a fan of the open mouth sculpt at all. It's the paint applications aren't great. The depth in that, you know, sculpt, the depth of the mouth of the teeth isn't great. But here we are for a quick comparison side by side with the Jaxon shoe one on the left and the Hot Toys one on the right. And like I said, I was quite happy with the Hot Toys one when I got it, and I did do a review on it, and somebody pointed out on my comments that it kind of looked a little bit George Clooney-ish, and I couldn't unsee it once that person pointed it out. You can see that the Jaxon shoe one is slightly different in shape. It's a little bit longer or elongated, a little bit, you know, thicker looking, and not as tall, should I say. Yeah, not as tall and a little bit more elongated. It just looks a bit more like him. The side profile looks more like him. Look at the eyes on the Hot Toys one. They're so big and bulgy compared to the Jaxon shoe one. So it is just a better sculpt overall. So I'm going to add this video to my Jaxon shoe 16 mods playlist on my channel. I'm going to put a link in the top line of the description, and if you want to check it out, another way is to go onto my channel and check out the playlists and the other playlists on that channel. And here's some pictures of it with the Jaxon shoe one on, and it's a huge upgrade to me as far as I'm concerned. Just looking like Ben Affleck in there and not so George Clooney-ish. So there we have it. There's just kind of switching from one to the other. So that's pretty much it for the review, guys. I hope it helped some of the people out that have the sculpts, and I'll leave it at that, and thanks for watching.